Very good evening, friends. Meeting again in the session of Kant's philosophy, and we have started discussing about the disease classification. In last lecture, we have started with new chapter, that is chapter number 18, chronic diseases, the Psora. And this is the basic fundamental miasm as Kant has explained in the first sentence only. If you go to the history of diseases, the first disease originated because of the Psora. So, fundamental miasm is a Psora miasm. Hahnemann explained over there that during his period or during his era, 7/8 cases were from the Psoric miasm, and only 1/8 cases were from the venereal miasm, that is psychosis and syphilis. In this chapter, Kant has tried to explain the Hahnemannian concept of suppression theory. So, Hahnemann's concept was that there might be a history of suppressed itch either in the past or family history of the patient leading towards the new internal diseases is called as a Psora. This word Hahnemann have chosen from the Hebrew language. Original word was Sorat. The English conversion was Psora, having the same meaning, that is, it is a groove or going inside from outside. The Hahnemannian concept is not wrong. Till today, we used to observe the same. We treat the cancers, we treat the many chronic diseases, and after treating the chronic diseases or cancer or internal diseases, what comes out on the surface is again the psoric eruptions. So Hahnemannian concept is very clear, but it was not complete. Kant was the intelligent person. He explained that if it is so, since when Psora was born, that was the question he has asked to himself, and he started working about it. And when he is going back in the reverse direction, it was there till the first human being was there. Right from the first human being, the Psora was persistent. And if it is so, then if there might be two chances. Either it is suppressed in God, and because of which it has entered into the human being, that might be a first reason which Kant has said. Or it might not be just a suppressed skin eruption, it is more than that. Thought was very clear. And that's why he considered if it is so with the human being, right from the first human being, it is something else. It is not just a itch eruption or a scabies eruption caused because of Sarcoptes scabiei, a mite. It is more than that. And what is that is nothing but the will of the human being. Human was there since long time, and in the early phase of the human life, he was remaining like an animal. Even though he was gifted with the logic, he was gifted with the mind, he was gifted with the emotions, but he used to remain like a natural life like other animals. But as the age passes, as the time has passed, because of his logic, because of his thinking, he has developed many things. And he started considering himself something more than that. And when he started something considering himself of a some different individual, then the first disorder started. And that's why Kant has used very good word, the spiritual sickness. Spiritual sickness is nothing but the sickness in the mind, in the thinking process. It was original nature of the human being to help others, to think of others first. and then think of self-worth. But it has changed when his will started developing, when his ego started developing. And thereafter, the disorder has started. And that's why Kent has labeled it is not just suppressed eruption. It is not just itch. It is not just scabies. It is will which has produced an ego in the human being is nothing but the Psora. So he wants to explain this thorough concept of the Psora in these two lectures. The first lecture explains the Hahnemannian concept, and second lecture leads with this will. We were there on the first three paragraphs we have finished. Fourth one we have to start with. In my book, it is 147 page. It might be different because my book is old edition. In required 12 years for Hahnemann, it required 12 years for Hahnemann to discover and gather together the evidence upon which he came to his conclusions. When a patient came to him who manifested chronic disease in any way, he took pains to write down carefully, in detail, all the symptoms, from beginning to end, with the history of father and mother, until he had collected a great number of appearances of the disease, not knowing yet what the outcome would be. So this was Hahnemannian method to write down each and every detail about the patient. He used to write down each and every complaint what the patient has said, whether it is subjective or objective, without knowing how it will help him in future, but he used to write it down. He used to write it down the past history of the patient. He used to write it down the family history of the patient. Every detail, without knowing how it will work for him. But after this careful writing out of the symptoms, of the hundreds of patients, little and great, and comparing them and then gathering them together in one grand group, there appeared in the totality of this collection a picture of Psora in all of its forms. So, when there were patients who were not getting cured with the help of law of similars, applied clearly, and there was a recurrence, then Hahnemann was going through those cases again and again. He gathered together those hundreds of cases which were not getting benefited with the help of homeopathy. Why there was a recurrence? That question was troubling the Hahnemann lot. He was thinking over that. And he was looking toward the cases again and again. Luckily and fortunately, everything Hahnemann have written ultimately helped him a lot. When he was going through cases again and again, he found certain group of symptoms which were present in many of those cases. There was a history of suppressed skin eruptions in the past of the patient, or either in the family history there was a suppressed eruption. That data was he was gathering over there, and he found that this is the common thing which is coming up. Up to this time, the world has been looking upon each one of these varying forms as distinct in itself. Example, all the striking features of the epilepsy would be gathered together, and epilepsy was then called a disease. But epilepsy is not only one of the results of the disease and never appears twice alike. It was the time when everyone was thinking about what might be the cause of those diseases. There was only one thing which was developing in modern science. They were labeling diseases with certain names. They were labeling the patient suffering from convulsions. They labeled it's a case of epilepsy, a broad name. But everyone's epilepsy was different. And still, the same name epilepsy was given to the disease. It never helped to treat the patient because symptoms are different in every case. We have in our materia medica, we have in our repertories, the convulsions at specific time, convulsions only at night, convulsions only in the morning, convulsions only after certain time, convulsions only during new moon, only during full moon. There are n number of modalities are present, and that's why every convulsion is different. How can you label it in broad sense epilepsy and start the same medicine? That was the question in Hahnemann's mind. So Hahnemann was thinking, what is the broadest reason behind that epileptic case? Every person who has epilepsy differs from every other epileptic on the earth. But epilepsy, insanity, diabetes, cancer, Bright's disease. What is Bright's disease? Bright's disease is the glomerulonephritis. And every other case of so-called disease have all had been a beginning and one beginning. They are not distinct, but operate in each person in accordance with that individual. So there were a lot of labeling have been done to the disorders. Someone is saying that it is epilepsy. Someone is saying that yes, this is a Bright's disease, this is a diabetes, this is a cancer, this is the early cirrhosis. They were labeling all those disorders. Hahnemann was the person who said all of these have the same root cause. And what is that? That he wants to explain. Hahnemann says that before he began that collection of symptoms, he was struck somewhat with wonder that Noxomica ignatia and such short-acting medicines were able to cure only a single manifestation of disease, a group of symptoms, or they would relieve for a time and then the symptoms would come back, although he had followed up the treatment to the best of his knowledge. Hahnemann was using the same medicines which he has proved. He has proved Noxomica, he has proved Ipecac, he has proved the belladonna, he has proved the aconite. And when he proved all those remedies, he used to use them on the basis of law of similars. But many a times it has happened in chronic diseases, they worked only as a palliative. There was no further progress and patients were returning back again and again. So, what might be the reason? That was the thought troubling Hahnemann. At the end of a case, he could discover that there had been a continuous progress in spite of the fact that he had relieved his patient of suffering a good many times. And this was the thing. The patients were getting temporarily relieved with the help of those remedies. So there must be something cause which was troubling that patient. And what was that? Hahnemann was in search of that. So it is, while acute acting remedies are used, you will use them if you do not know the Psoric doctrine. The short-acting medicines are the ones that contain the counterparts of the acute manifestations of Psora, and hence, when these acute manifestation appears in the group of symptoms, you will naturally select acute remedies and you will palliate them from time to time. But at the end of years, you will look upon every individual case and will notice that the case has been steadily progressing. And this was happening with Hahnemann himself. And this happens with us every time. We used to consider certain part of the totality. We find it out acute remedy. Patient feels better with that remedy. But he was not getting completely recovered. At the end of year, his disease was progressing, even though he was feeling better for time being. Because underlying cause behind that has been not cured with the help of your remedy. So there must be a root cause. And what is that root cause is nothing but the Psora behind that. You will find that you have not struck at the root of the trouble, and there is an underlying something present and prevailing, and that the disease is steadily growing worse. So this is happening. The disease is growing worse day by day, because you have not treated the root cause. Hahnemann saw this, and it was the mystery to him because he had acquired a perfect mastery over the acute diseases with acute remedy. Such Asorics had been at this time very well proved belladonna, aconite, bryonia, arnica, China, Naxomica, etc., etc., and these had been found to be perfectly suitable for the acute manifestations of Psora and for the acute miasms. Hahnemann had not yet learned that acute miasms were utterly and strictly acute miasms, and could not therefore compare acute miasms with chronic miasms and vice versa. He had not seen them yet as a miasms. So Hahnemann was not considering about anything regarding the miasm. He was considering it as only a disease, but certain cases which were acute used to get recovered with all those remedies, like belladonna, like aconite, like bryonia, like arnica, like china, like ipecac, like naxomica. And with these remedies, he used to treat acutes very confidently and without any recurrence. But if the disease was prevailing, if disease was chronic, it was not responding properly to those remedies. Patients were not getting cured because of those remedies. And then the thought was there in his mind, what is wrong with me or what is wrong with my science? Because of which he was just thinking how to go ahead. One will not understand the acute miasm clearly until able to compare them with the chronic miasms. There was one question asked by Dr. Vijayalakshmi, what is the difference between psoric and asoric? Psoric means a disorder which are chronic enough, which are very defecting. The remedies which covers acute phase only, whatever the names which he has mentioned over there, belladonna, aconite, bryonia, arnica, china, natsumica, these are the remedies. You open the Borix Materia Medica, at the end you see the action of those remedies. Or open the Kent's repertory, at the end there is a Gibson-Miller's remedy relationship. And you will find that all those remedies are having very acute phase of action. Aconite for 1 to 7 days. Belladonna, the same. The Naxomica, the same. These are very acute remedies. And when these acute remedies are there, these are not psoric remedies which doesn't have a capacity to go beyond that. That is, those are called to be asoric. That means the acute miasm was there lurking behind. It is not a chronic miasm. So acute miasm is rather different than the chronic miasm. This is what he wants to highlight. One will not understand the acute miasms clearly until able to compare them with the chronic miasm. They side up one with another and make it wonderfully manifest. The acute miasms come on either with sufficient violence to cause death to patients or with less violence, wherein there is a period of progress and tendency to recover. They cannot be prolonged in patients and must subside. The acute miasms are not governed in accordance with fixed time in order to be acute miasms because they have times of their own. So if you see the disorders, if you read it from your PSM book, every remedy has their specific period of action. They remains inside body at certain level. If you open the communicable diseases, all are acute miasmatic diseases. You will find it measles has certain period. That is, measles will going to remain nearly about 7 to 8 days. If it is mumps, same. If it is the enteric fever, 21 days. So every remedy, every acute disease caused because of acute miasm has a fixed period in your body. This is what he is telling. They have times of their own. Neither is there a time after lapse of which the chronic miasm is said to be a chronic. In chronic, there is no question of a time. In chronic miasms, they starts imperceptibly, gradually develops inside the body until at a length the vital force is disturbed completely. And they go reaches to such a level that day by day, they disturbs or ruins the health of the person, ultimately ending with the destruction of the organism. There is no question of a specific period in chronic disease. Neither there is a time after lapse of which chronic miasm is said to be chronic. According to the old school, diseases have been divided into acute, subacute, and chronic. If any sickness ran longer than 6 weeks, it would be placed among the subacute. If it ran on indefinitely, it was called chronic. But a chronic miasm is chronic from its beginning, and an acute miasm is acute from its beginning. It is from its nature, from its capabilities, and from what it will do to the human race that we must name the miasm. So, very clear-cut difference between acute miasm and chronic miasm he has explained over there. Acutes are acute right from the beginning. Keep it in your mind, your body knows what is acute and what is chronic. If there is an infection like pneumococcus, streptococcus, staphylococcus, whatever is there, the immune reaction which develops in the form of a pathology, it specifically sends neutrophils or polymorphs to tackle that disease, to tackle that infection. It specifically sends a exudate over there containing globulins, but it will not send, the immune system will not send monocytes, lymphocytes to tackle acute infection. Your body recognizes whether it is acute or chronic. But at the same time, if tubercular bacilli is there inside your body, there is no polymorph which goes to fight against that tubercular bacilli, but lymphocytes goes over there. Monocytes goes over there. In fact, they develops a giant cell to tackle that infection. See, acute is acute right from the start and chronic is chronic right from the start. The clear-cut indication which he has mentioned over there, and this is what he said over there. So, acute miasm right from the start is acute, and chronic miasm is right from the start is chronic. This one must know. And acute miasms are not at all related with chronic miasms. They are absolutely different. And chronic miasms, which produces an acute disorder, always have Psora in background. So these are two different entities which he has explained over there. I think it's better to stop over here and continue with the same in tomorrow's session. So in this chapter, he was making it very clear regarding the acute miasm and chronic miasm, as well as Hahnemann's concept regarding them. So that's all for today. Thank you and good evening. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.